Perhaps we should wait until maybe 1 minute.
Okay, that works.
Thank you. All right. It's 2:01. We'll get started. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining PSN today. Our guest speaker is Melanie Conti. She is with the town of Truckee and will be discussing their sustainability programs. My name is Linda Miller. Ali Zabo and I co-lead the Project 7 team for the PSN Policy and Funding Group. Our team discusses state and local sustainability policies and programs. We have hosted several monthly webinars in 2022, which featured sustainability policies in various cities and counties in Nevada and neighboring areas. This program will continue in 2023. For today's webinar, we ask that you mute yourselves until the end of Melanie's presentation. Meanwhile, feel free to post in the chat box at any time, and we'll be sure to address those entries at the end as well. Today's recording of this presentation will be posted on the PSN YouTube page within 1 week. Thank you for listening in today, and thank you, Melanie, for taking time out of your busy day to talk with us. I'll turn it over to Melanie now.
Thank you, Linda. And I'm happy to be here and happy to share a bit about our programs going on in Truckee. So I work with the town of Truckee with our Keep Truckee Green division, which is our sustainability team. And I work specifically on waste and recycling projects. So I'm going to talk a bit about what we've been working on in the waste and recycling world here at the town. So in November, last month, we passed a single-use foodware reduction ordinance. And this was a long time in the making process. We started back in 2018, and there was a 2-year pause in the process because of COVID. So I'm going to talk a bit about that ordinance and what policies are included and how we're planning to implement those projects. So it all started with students. We had students advocating to our town council that they wanted to see a straw ban or a styrofoam ban, and for our council to take action against litter and waste. So these students were really what drove this whole mission. Pictured here are some students at council meetings. And from here, council directed staff to look into some kind of solution towards waste. So we did. We began doing research and outreach to the public. We held a couple community workshops and did a lot of research to see what other cities and other jurisdictions were doing. And we proposed some policies to our town council. And from there, they directed us to form a working group. So we put together a group of environmental advocates, business owners, and members of the public to flesh out the details of our recommendations. We finally were able to put that group together at the beginning of this year. So we met over a 6-month process to flesh out the details. From there, we came up with some more formal recommendations and did a public survey and some additional community outreach to get some final feedback on the process. The whole goal, the priorities of our ordinance are to focus on the top pillar of our zero waste hierarchy, which is to reduce, to minimize the amount of waste produced in the first place. We did a lot of research on what single-use product might be the best. There's a lot of life cycle assessments comparing the very beginning of a product's life to the end, comparing that lifespan between different material types. And the results show that there really is not a best single-use option. So our policies are focusing on source reduction, reducing the use of all disposable products, and instead shifting our culture here in Truckee towards reusables wherever possible. So like I mentioned, those life cycle assessments show there's impacts throughout the whole life cycle of a product between sourcing the raw materials, manufacturing, transportation. Those are really where the bulk of the impacts lie. And when you're able to switch to reusables, you're drastically reducing those impacts because those obviously only happen once with a reusable product, and the product can be reused over and over before it reaches that end of life part of the life cycle. So that was our main criteria for evaluating foodware. Our ordinance also includes a styrofoam ban, which is the only part where we kind of stray away from this life cycle assessment because there was a more unique impact in terms of litter and the breakdown of styrofoam in the environment. So like I said, we tried to not focus on any specific material type. Our goal is to reduce the use of all disposable products. We did not end up recommending requiring recyclable or compostable foodware. Our compost program does not accept compostable foodware, so these products are still going to the landfill. Recyclable foodware needs to be clean. There can't be any food residue in order for those products to be recyclable. So we decided that we wanted to just jump to the very best option to reusables and not get stuck in this compostable or recycling foodware option and set the standard at reusables. So these are the policies we ended up including in our ordinance. Like I mentioned, we included a ban on styrofoam, a requirement for vendors to provide reusable foodware for customers dining in, a requirement for a 25-cent fee on disposable cups and takeout containers. And we also strengthened AB 1276, which is a state law in California that requires accessory foodware items are provided upon request. So I will go into a little bit more detail on each of those. We also have some business assistance and outreach and education that is included. So I don't think I need to spend much time on the styrofoam ban. I think we're all well aware of the impacts of styrofoam as litter and how that product can be damaging when in the environment. So with our ban, we're also providing up to $300 for businesses to purchase non-styrofoam foodware alternatives. The second policy is to require reusable foodware for in-house dining. So again, we are trying to reduce the use of disposable foodware whenever possible and really try to reinforce that culture of reuse. We have a grant program for this as well. We're providing businesses up to $1,000 to purchase or install a dishwasher, and then up to $500 to procure reusable foodware products. The third policy is the 25-cent fee for disposable cups and takeout containers. The goal here is really to encourage customers to bring their own reusable. The goal is not to require customers to pay the fee, although that is the requirement, but the whole goal is to use that fee as an incentive to create that behavior change. There's a lot of research that shows fees have a larger impact on behavior change than a discount. We have all seen coffee shops providing discounts for bringing your own reusable cup for a long time, and that has not created a large impact in creating the desired behavior. So There's a couple other cities that have started charging a fee to drive that behavior change further. The businesses keep the 25-cent fee revenue, and that 25-cent fee amount comes from research on one, what amount will cover the cost of that disposable, and two, what amount will really drive that behavior change where it's just enough to get the customer to start thinking about doing the alternative to avoid it. So there are, what is this, 8 cities that are already doing this. As you can see, most are just charging 25 cents per disposable cup. Arcata is charging 25 cents per order. That includes takeout boxes and cups. So Truckee is the first city to be charging 25 cents for each disposable cup and each disposable takeout container. So that means if there's an order that includes 2 cups and a takeout container, the total charge would be 75 cents. So this was the other reason we decided to go with 25 cents, to try to continue with the standard and be consistent with other cities. There are a couple exemptions to the fee. Customers on WIC, EBT, or Medi-Cal are exempt from the fee. And the fee does not apply to containers that are provided for leftovers when a customer is dining in. So the goal with that is to prevent the unintended consequence of having a customer not want to take their leftover food home, and thus creating food waste. So we are trying to avoid food waste. And the second exemption there is for pizza boxes because there is not a great reusable alternative currently available for that. The town is also providing some assistance to businesses for this policy. We are planning to do a large outreach campaign to educate locals and visitors, set up point of sale signage, help businesses and their staff implement this fee and provide that education. The last policy I mentioned is strengthening AB 1276. So this state law went into effect in beginning of this year, and it requires that accessory foodware items are provided upon request. That definition of accessory foodware items includes disposable utensils, condiment cups and packets, straws, stirrers, splash sticks, and cocktail sticks. And it bans the bundling of single-use accessories like the photo shown here. We decided to strengthen that, and we added napkins, cup lids, and cup sleeves to that definition as well. We did some estimated analyses of the impacts of these policies. We used a great tool from Reusable San Mateo where we categorized each business in Truckee by different food service styles. And each of those styles came with estimates for the amount of waste that that type of restaurant will generate. We used that application from Reusable San Mateo to come up with these estimates that our policies will eliminate 8.2 million disposable foodware items each year, equaling out to about 130,000 pounds. And that equals out to about 4.7 metric tons of carbon saved each year, which is equivalent to one gas-powered vehicle driven for 1 year. The cost savings for businesses from not purchasing disposable foodware products comes out to $4,500 per year. And that applies to limited service restaurants who are typically using disposable foodware a bit more than full service restaurants. So that cost savings is simply from no longer purchasing and requiring that continuous purchase of disposable products. So the ban on styrofoam will go into effect April 1st, 2023. And the other three policies, the accessories upon request, 25-cent fee, and reusables for in-house dining, will go into effect January of 2024. There's a typo there on that slide, sorry. So right now we are working on getting our outreach plan together. We just had our grant program approved by our town council earlier this month. And we're putting together that outreach and education campaign. And in the new year, we'll be reaching out to businesses to implement the styrofoam ban. After that, we will be doing outreach on the remaining three policies. We actually have a RFP out right now for some consultant support to do that outreach. And we're planning to do a lot of technical assistance to really help businesses figure out what exactly they need and how they can comply with these new requirements. So that is our ordinance. I'm happy to take some questions on that at the end. I also just wanted to touch on our reusable green box program. I actually have my box right here. I just ordered lunch from our local lunch spot down the street and ordered it in a reusable green box. So I'm going to talk a bit about what that is, if some of you aren't familiar. So this whole program started as a pilot back in 2018 when we, again, were having students advocating for some kind of action against waste. And we met up with Red Truck, a restaurant here in Truckee down the street that it's just down the street from Town Hall, and it is a frequent spot for town staff to get takeout lunch, to order in a disposable food container, takeout container, and bring that food back to Town Hall. And we thought, what a great opportunity. It's almost like a closed system to allow town staff to use a reusable container to get their food from Red Truck to be brought back here to Town Hall. Red Truck was thankfully super willing, and we tested out a couple boxes, some different box styles seen here, and we worked with Red Truck to kind of figure out the logistics of the program. So that pilot ran for a couple months, and we were able to iron out the details and able to expand that to other restaurants and to the general public as well. So how it works is customers pay $5 to purchase their first box. When you order your takeout meal, all you do is request your food in a reusable green box. If it's your first box you're purchasing, you pay $5 at that order. If you already have a box, you bring your box with you, and your food is provided to you in a different green box, and it's an exchange program. So you leave your box there and take your food home in a different green box. And then the restaurant is responsible for cleaning and sanitizing the green boxes. So that's how it works from the customer perspective. From the back end perspective of managing the program, the town purchases the boxes in bulk for about $4 each. We're able to get a little bit better price by purchasing them in bulk. And then when a business joins the program, we provide them with 100 boxes for free. If they need additional boxes beyond that 100, we split the cost with the business and charge $2 per box. The business then has the opportunity to sell each box for $5, so there's an opportunity to get some revenue by joining the program. They are responsible for washing the boxes and keeping track of the number of boxes sold and exchanged, and then reporting that data to the town. We also do advertising for the businesses involved in the program, along with advertising the Green Box program, so that's an additional incentive for businesses. So far, we have 9 businesses on board. We have about 1,800 green boxes out in circulation, and we estimate we've saved about 70,000 single-use boxes from landfill. Since the program began back in 2018, the town has spent $8,500 on purchasing the boxes. Yeah, so the opportunity here is to really combine this program with implementation of our new ordinance. Obviously, with the 25-cent fee on disposable takeout containers, We're hoping that'll incentivize customers to opt into the Green Box program and use that as an opportunity to avoid the fee and again shift on further to reusable foodware whenever possible. So that is our Green Box program, and that is our ordinance information, and I'm happy to take any questions on any of that.
Thank you, Melanie. One question that came to mind immediately on the green boxes is if you have considered a software application use with that for the future, perhaps.
Did you say software?
Yes, software
Okay.
that,
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear my dog, but she's whining in the background right over when you said software. So, yes, software, we have not considered that. I think there may be some opportunity to combine some software or some other logistical upgrades and to keep track of the data for the number of boxes exchanged and sold. So right now, businesses each use their different point of sale software and programming. And they use that, whatever program they already have, to keep track of boxes sold and exchanged. And then they report that back to us. So there's no uniform software currently. Each business is using their individual program, but I do think that maybe installing QR codes or a barcode could help in keeping that data. And I will say that getting businesses to keep that data and report it back to us has been a challenge. When we initially started the program, we weren't requiring that data piece. And since we've had businesses join the program later, and since we've added that requirement, it's been challenging to pester businesses to send that information over. I think it obviously business owners, as many of you are aware, are busy, and it's an extra step and piece of effort. So that, I will say, has been a challenge. So if there was an opportunity, some kind of software to make it easier, I think that would increase our opportunity to get that better data.
great. So we have a couple of questions in the chat box. And I'm going to read one in particular because it ties in with the green box. Rob is asking, how was the funding obtained to start this program? And I'm assuming, Rob, you're referring to the green box program?
Actually, I'm referring to the program in general, green box, as well as all your front end, launched work, and also any you're obviously putting out RFPs for consultation. That takes a little money as well.
Yes, that's right. That's a very good question. That is, funding is a very specific focus with our PSN team, Melanie. So anything you can share, how that funding came together for either of the program that you're discussing would be helpful.
Yeah, so funding for our Keep Truckee Green programs comes from an administrative fee on our solid waste rates for businesses and residents. So the rates that are paid for solid waste services, there's a small fee on a small percentage that goes towards our solid waste budget that funds recycling education, waste reduction programs like these, and all of our Keep Truckee Green projects and programs.
That's amazing. We have another question from Sarah in the chat box. She says, I saw that you saved 70,000 containers from the landfill. How many years of data was that? Which actually ties in with a question I was thinking along the lines of waste characterization studies. Do you have anything along those lines? But Sarah was saying, how many years of data was that if because she saw that you saved 70,000 containers from the landfill?
That data goes back to the program inception in 2018. So, like I said, it has been a bit of a challenge for us to get data from businesses on the number of boxes used and exchanged and sold. So that comes from the limited data we do have and kind of extrapolating that out to estimate the total use of the boxes at each business. But that's since the program started.
Does that answer your question, Sarah? Okay, and I see Sarah also has another question. Does that admin fee pay your salary too? We need to increase our staff capacity too.
Yes, a portion of that admin fee does go towards our staff salary, so mine and my supervisor. We also have worked into our contract with our waste hauler to pay a portion of my salary as well, because I am doing a lot of outreach and education on the recycling and waste collection programs to their customers, to our residents and businesses. And typically haulers have an outreach staff person, and our hauler does not. So it was worked out in our franchise agreement that a portion of my work would be doing hauler outreach as well.
You mentioned food waste. I was wondering if the town of Truckee has a composting program with their waste management facility or independent composting organizations that you kind of make available to businesses. How does that work with food waste?
Yes, great question. We do have a food waste program with our waste hauler. There is a state requirement for food waste collection, commercial for businesses, and that's for large generators of food scraps. So we do have a program with our hauler. There's about 50 businesses on board. And then we also have a public or residential drop-off program. So the commercial program is in a wheeled cart collected curbside by the hauler weekly. We obviously have wildlife challenges in the Truckee, Tahoe area, which may be relatable to some of you across Nevada as well. But we don't have the capacity for a residential food waste curbside collection service. So instead, we have a optional drop-off program. So we've placed dumpsters across town, wildlife resistant dumpsters with locking latches on the lid for residents to utilize and drop off their food waste. And that has been very successful. We've had a lot of participation and we've tried to place them across town in different locations so that they're conveniently located for people to utilize.
Great. So we have another question here from Risa. A couple of questions from Risa. She says, she's asking, can you talk more about the public survey that was conducted? Who was the sample, for example? Did they receive an incentive? That's one question.
Yeah, so we did a public survey once we had the final recommendations from our working group on the ordinance policies. So we got some feedback on those policies from members of the public at large and from businesses specifically. So we had two different surveys targeting those different audiences. We did provide incentives sometimes for the members of the public. I think I had a photo on there of us out at Truckee Thursday, a summer street fair event that happens throughout the whole summer. It's like 13 Thursdays across the summer. And we were out there for a couple Thursdays with iPads, encouraging people walking by to take our survey. And at that event, we did we had green boxes actually that we were passing out to people as a reward for taking the survey. So that was kind of an incentive provided there.
Mm. Well, that Risa has another question that was in the back of my mind as well. Given the enthusiasm from the student groups, has any thought been given into perhaps introducing the green box to schools?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We do work really closely with our schools, the Tahoe Truckee School District, and we have spoken about potentially providing green boxes in the schools. We're not really sure if it really fits. Most of them eat lunch in the cafeteria. They don't really need an opportunity to take it home most times. So we are working with them on providing reusables in the cafeteria. So reusable trays and plates and cups and utensils. So we have worked with them on implementing reusables, and we have thought about the green box, but at this point we don't really have a program set up for the school lunches for green boxes, but we definitely use the student groups to do outreach on the green box program, and we're always sharing with the schools what is happening in our Keep Truckee Green programming, because the students are such great advocates and they bring that information home to their families. So we do work really closely with them.
That's amazing, Melanie. I will reach out to you separately on the schools reusables at some point here soon. That is of great interest. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit about the policy. Like, how does the policy work? Right, our focus is policy and funding. So, are there policy incentives built in to any of these policies, or how do you see it rolling out and enforcing, perhaps?
Yeah, so over the next year, we will be doing a ton of outreach and education to businesses. I think all of this is a bit complex and will take effort on the business's part to implement. So part of that RFP I mentioned includes providing technical assistance. So our goal is to really do a lot of handholding, helping businesses implement all of this. We have the grant funding available, and we really want to be doing door-to-door outreach to businesses, getting in to every restaurant and food establishment to help them figure out what that specific business may need to do to adjust to be in compliance. So determining how many reusable cups they might need to purchase, how to implement or how to accept a customer provided reusable container. There's some environmental health and safety standards that need to be met in terms of not contaminating the surfaces, the serving surfaces of the restaurant. So we are working on putting together many guides, one-sheet guides for all those different things, all those different requirements, and provide a lot of assistance to businesses. And I think that outreach and education and assistance will be our number one priority over the next year and a half. From there, for the compliance process, we are going to be working on a complaint-driven compliance process. So we will likely have something up on our website where someone can submit information about a business if they notice that they might not be following the requirements, if they're still using styrofoam, or if they're serving disposable foodware for in-house dining. And really, if that happens, again, focusing on education and making sure businesses have the resources, I think that will be our number one priority. Down the line, we do have the opportunity to charge fines for violations of our municipal code, but I don't foresee us doing that. I think in the near term, that education component will be our top goal.
Great. You mentioned dishwashers, providing funds for dishwashers as needed. this might be a little preliminary to be asking you, but I imagine there might be some restaurants, some facilities that just it's just too much of a challenge to bring in a dishwasher. Do you have any kind of contingency plan for that at this point?
Yes, that's a great question. We do have an exemption process in the ordinance. So if a business is unable to comply, they can apply for a 1-year hardship exemption. So the business just needs to explain what their challenge is. And I think space is definitely going to be a challenge. I definitely think there's going to be businesses that just don't have the space to install a dishwasher. Every business is required to have a 3-compartment sink currently under our county environmental health requirements. So that is sufficient. If that is sufficient for a business, they can utilize that for reusable foodware. If it's a business that is transitioning a large volume of foodware over to reusable and they just don't have a 3-compartment sink might not work and they don't have the capacity to install a dishwasher, that might be an opportunity for a exemption. So a business can get a 1-year hardship exemption if they have some unique challenge like that.
Great. Along the lines of policy, was the town of Truckee able to manage, in collaboration with others, maybe who would be the county or other governing entity, like who would be the key stakeholders that you had to collaborate with to kind of pull this together and make it all compliant?
Yes, we did work closely with county environmental health to make sure all of these policies would work in terms of their health and safety requirements and follow their inspection guidelines. The county is actually our enforcement agency for the AB 1276 requirement for accessory items upon request. So we did work closely with them on doing some outreach for that. They go and do annual inspections to all of our food facilities. So I'm actually meeting with them right after this to talk a bit more on how we can collaborate in doing outreach and making sure it's a streamlined process for businesses. Dishwashers and dishwasher installations also need to meet county health requirements to make sure the hot water temperature is appropriate, things like that. And so that is what I'll be chatting with them after this about in more detail, how we can combine our outreach and make it a streamlined, easy process for businesses, because there is some requirements and enforcement coming from the county on the same things. So there's definitely a big need for collaboration to make it easy.
Great. So I just have one more question regarding tourism. The town of Truckee has an enormous influx of tourism. What might be if you have a education program kind of focused on tourism, or how do you handle that because of that? It's just transient.
Yes, we do have a large tourism population, and targeting our outreach to reach that group will be a huge goal over the next year, pairing with our tourism authority to reach that audience as much as possible. We also have a short-term rental team here at the town that does a lot of communication with short-term rental owners, so folks who own a home and Airbnb it out. I also met with the local hotelier group a couple weeks ago to kind of talk about the same thing, how we can reach that visitor audience. And a couple ideas we have are to possibly implement the Green Box program at Airbnbs or at hotels to make that program available to visitors. and they could leave that box at the Airbnb or back at the hotel when they're done using it, so it can get reused and returned into our program here locally. That's the whole goal of the program. We don't want people to bring them home and go back to the Bay Area or Sacramento. We want those boxes to continue in the program being reused. So finding opportunities to partner with those groups, I think, will be crucial to the success of getting our visitor population on board, and trying to make it as easy as possible for that group to participate.
Great. Well, I'll just open it up to anyone else who would like to unmute yourself and ask any questions. Please do so now.
Hi, Melanie. Hi, Linda. This is Lakshmi. I just went skiing recently, and I noticed that there's a glut of the so-called biodegradable cups and this and that everywhere. And I know it's not quite directly related to what you just presented, but I was wondering how town of Truckee deals with that greenwashing problem, so just curious.
Yeah, I think that will be another big focus of our outreach and education over the next year. We've already gotten some questions about why our ordinance doesn't include a requirement for compostable foodware or recyclable foodware. And specifically, if we're banning styrofoam, how come we're not requiring those restaurants to use compostable takeout containers in foodware instead? So that has provided a good education opportunity to talk about why we didn't include that and why those products aren't necessarily better. So we haven't done a huge education campaign on that yet, but that is in the works. And I think it's unfortunate that the greenwashing has been so strong and people really do believe that those products are better. Perhaps if they can be composted, they might be, but locally they're just sent to landfill, and a lot of people don't know that. So I think just starting with that and letting people know that these actually sit in a landfill. They're just like other disposable foodware products, and they still require intensive emissions to produce, sometimes even more because of the land required to grow the organic materials. So that is definitely in the works and something we'll be focusing on as we go forward. But I think it'll be a challenge because a lot of people have already bought into that program, so or that belief that compostable is better. So I think it's a huge misconception that we'll have to tackle.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Thank you very much for that.
All right. Well, if no one else has any questions, Melanie, we want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to talk with us. We've learned so much from you today, so thank you for all your hard work and for being a leader in this these sustainability efforts. PSN members and guests, this recording will be available on the PSN YouTube channel in about a week. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.